Um, they're here. No, sorry. They're here. Sorry. Hello, everybody. It's time. It's time to get back to work. I know it's the most interesting part of such meetings is always the coffee breaks. So I know there's such a lively exchange going on, and this is always the best part. But as we had also a very, very lively exchange in the working groups, I would like you all to benefit from the group work in the different groups. So we definitely need to find some space to feedback. Okay? Are we all ready to listen to the three feedback? Each group has a rapporteur, and I would just call maybe one by one. So rapporteur of group 1, could you come up to the stage with your brown paper? And yes. You the rapporteur of group 1? Okay, great. Your floor is yours.
You are going to hold the paper, perfect.
And if we could have the close-up of the camera on the for the people who are watching online, but I think we are not going to use the screen because I don't know. Or do we want to? I don't know. Probably it's enough if you just speak. Don't make it too complicated.
Okay, so let's start with the conclusions of our group about the local capacities. We think that the lack of local actors and also young people is important in rural areas because, as we explained during this morning, sometimes we have great ideas or we have projects, but we need people that lead that project. So this is a lack of the rural areas. We have also resistance to change when new people come to rural areas, to our village or cities. People that live there sometimes have resistance to the change or to include that people in their communities. For example, another important point, so about not local capacities, we have not local initiative or skills, like people that found associations or cultural initiatives that dynamize the rural areas. Other points about, for example, housing. It's an important point because in some regions we have the problem that people want to come to live to our village, but we face the problem that we don't have house for that people. So it's an important lack. For example, the business capacity to produce essential services. It's true that in rural areas, the business that we have are sometimes small, so we don't have the capacity to produce or to generate the services that zones need. So we need companies, big companies that come from cities or from another regions to develop that services. So how to convert that lacks into new opportunities, for example, for the housing. We suggest to build public housing or encourage people to create cooperative housing to find a housing solution. We, for example, want to people or local governments to create specific energy markets, promoting green energies like solar power plants in a local way in village. We need to identify local talent to supply the lack of local actors or young people, because sometimes there are a lot of people that want to do things, but they don't find the way or the tools to do that. And to sum up so quickly, important thing is to identify a community connector, a leader in rural areas that manage all the initiatives and to improve or push all the initiative that we have in a local way. So continue to the linkage. We have a couple of things to comment. For example, practices to optimize food autonomy and reduce waste. That was about, for example, if we have a local farm near of us, why we import some products for other parts. We need to improve the linkage between the producers and the markets and the consumers to make that possible. If we move to the green part about what we need to do to improve the linkage, we have the mobility. We need to improve the public transport and encourage people to use that kind of transport. But building infrastructure, I mean, it's important to build that infrastructure. People use it. We need to connect people from the small village to the medium village to have the services in that way. Because we know that it's impossible to have all the public services in all villages. We can't pretend to build a hospital in each village. But it's important to have a public transport service that make possible to people that lives in a small village to come to other cities. It's important to being part of a network, not only a transport or a mobility network, also a social network that shares cultural aspects and also other capacities. And to encourage the circular economy, we suggest, for example, to public administration to implement it. For example, in school meals, to only use food that was produced near what it's consumed, and also encourage companies to consume only local products and raw material that was produced near the industry, for example. And to finish the innovation points. For example, we say that we have a lack of relationship, a lack of between geopolitical statements in the Mediterranean region. That's about village in the Mediterranean region needs to be synced in the public policies to fight against the population, because most of the time share the problems. So we think into European level it's a great point. For example, to implement digital solutions to fight against the population, and also we have the example, we need to have examples of projects that have a great impact against the population, that the SINRA database, and, for example, reveal meeting points of village to create community in day, and also the co-creation to find solution, community-based innovation. That's about, for example, the platform that the Rural Pact launched today. So to sum up, we need innovation ways to fight against the population, but an important thing that we said in Europe, with people, not for people. We need to encourage the inhabitants of rural areas to participate in the solutions, and we need to ask them how to implement the solutions and how to fight against that phenomenon. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great. All right. We go immediately to group number 2. I think this group was particularly productive because they have worked 25 minutes longer than everybody else, or that everybody was supposed to finish. So that's why they were allowed slightly more time. But ideally, we would have a very streamlined feedback. You don't have to repeat the points that were already mentioned. Do you want to use the lectern, or do you want to speak?
However, this is fine too.
Yeah, it's working. Everything is working.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Marijan Rukavina-Cipetic from Croatia, a NGO working in rural development, and I'm representing Group 2. Our group was focused mainly on economy and jobs since that approach, so you'll see that in our reactions. That first, regarding our first category, regarding capacity, building up local capacity, we had a lot of talk about developing of cooperatives and social economy, including the need for increasing their sustainability, technical assistance, regarding for whom and with whom, we felt, all of us felt as a somehow cross-cutting that rural women are underrepresented and are not just a simple category, but an actual resource that can be relied upon. Regarding innovation, we talked a lot about quadruple helix cooperation involving all the sectors together, especially encouraging this link with the academic sector towards applying on the local level, making changes. Policy, improving policies, but in the real life, in the villages, in institutional organizations like incubators and centers which can gather people, and especially young people, and give them opportunities for economic development and also cultural and other links. This also includes the human resource side, advisors, mentors, and having people available in the rural areas for such things. Regarding the last category, innovation, we talked about social innovation. There's a lot of good practices available in this regard. There's a need for platforms, not just on the European level or national level, but even local platforms for innovation. Given the distances people are, they still need online connections, and it makes it more accessible to people that are living far away. Regarding our indicators, how we measure our success, we felt it was important not just to look at quantity, especially when we are dealing with areas with not large numbers of people. The quality can be very important. As a cross-cutting theme, there was the idea of these intermediaries always present, supporting local groups and local initiatives and local human resources as the kind of fabric of all of these changes to keep it sustainable. And I think that would be the short story. If you want a longer one, we can go in more detail.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you very much, Marianne. Very concise and very useful. And now for group 3, Mark, I don't know where you're, and Juha Matti has the brown sheet, and then we have Mark from Germany. Ah, there he is. Okay.
All right. So, hello everybody. My group encouraged me to do that. I will give my best. All right. So we have different aspects. We have a little bit of structure here that I would go through. So on the left side, we talked about the LEADER program, which is not really a funding, but mainly just a support approach for local communities, because we also talked about the point that EU funding could be more accessible for local communities in a direct way, not like through national authorities, and then so we might also have less bureaucracy. So some people agreed. It's good. Then we had a whole aspect of enabling social innovators. So the idea is that if some actors in those communities are motivated to do something, they should not have too many obstacles. So we need to encourage them to innovate something by themselves. In this context, we also talked about legal points, which is there. That we would like to have a legal framework that is enabling those innovators to create something. It was in the context of those Polish schools, which are not public but more private, so and that they don't have legal problems. Then, what did I forget? Maybe someone can assist me on this. Someone can maybe. Yeah, and then the topic about taxes. Yes, that was also discussed by our group. That we would like to have more tax incentives. I don't know what it means, but basically that the rural areas can have better tax conditions than the big cities, so that they might so that people are more attracted maybe to start something in a rural area. Maybe something very important that I forgot from my group. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks a lot. Thanks. Also, thanks to all the support people who were holding the different sheets. That's a very important task. And as you see, we have really come up with different sides of the same policy that in the three different groups. So you see, depending on the type of rural area that you come across, the type of areas that were showcased in the projects, you really have to have an adapted mix of policies and adapted features of these policies to respond to those needs. So even that small exercise is already showing you how we should proceed. Now, I told you in the beginning of the session that there's a fifth component of this meeting. So the first four were the sessions here. We are now in the fourth session. The fifth component is starting tomorrow, something that we will do about it when we go home. For that, and for some reflections on what they heard in this event, I would like first to invite three representatives, three stakeholders from the working groups, just as a kind of very short bird's eye view on what we have discussed before. And then we will later on invite two experts who were listening with a different ear. They came here with a specific purpose, so they have a different perspective on the event. But first, we want this is the bottom-up principle. We start with the stakeholders. So I understand from group 1, there's Konstantinos, is that correct? And from group 2 is Blantyne. And from group 3, I have Christina. So, yes, is that right? Could I invite you to join me on the podium and share with us the key messages you will take home and the key actions you will take on the basis. Sorry, I just give you the microphone. I don't know, Pascal, if you can help me, or I don't know. Anyway, can you? Yeah, sorry, I didn't see you. Just to help me with the microphones and so on. But I would suggest maybe start with Christina. So I called you last. Is that okay? Just tell us, like literally in 2 minutes, your main takeaway messages and actions to take home. Yes, please.
So in no order, but probably linked with what I do every day. I'm a professor in a school of agriculture and a researcher in an inner part of the country, working with family farmers. So I think we should focus on finding something that called my attention, finding local social innovators and local talents and talent from other parts that want to join us in the inner territories, find, train, skill them in order to allow them to build initiatives, to contribute to policies, whatever that can transform this abandonment of the inner territories. Then creating or trying to enforce this linkage between what we are doing in research, academy, these innovators and local talent, policymakers, services, to create local initiatives. And one of the linkages that seems to be failing is the linkage to connect science with local reality and also with citizen science. It seems that we have a gap here, that we are not talking the same language. Also, I think it's necessary, at least in my country, to write and to call attention for the need for what we need to include in policies, like advisory and mentor services, or tax reduction, or other incentives that might fix and attract people to the inner territories. Also, one of the things that caught my attention, it was one of the presentations that I heard, is that it's possible to have these initiatives based on a self-sufficient economic return of the initiatives, instead of being dependent on funds from national, Europe, regional, whatever we are looking for. So maybe policies should be more investing more on creating conditions to self-sufficient initiatives. Another thing that it was very interesting is that some frugal support for small things that have high impact can make a difference. Also, when we are talking about places with less people, maybe we can readapt that people to different jobs. So a professor with few students could do other things, like being an entrepreneur or an innovator. So that might help to fix people in these areas. And at last, anything that might contribute to create cooperation, community, network, platforms, well, we have heard it here all day. I think they are very important and they should be more connected.
Great. Thank you very much. Maybe you could pass to Konstantinos. I don't know, they're just in the reverse order that I...
Yeah, it has been a joy to be here. I work with local government in Western Greece, 19 municipalities of which 15 are rural, so we have mountainous and remote areas which are facing high cost of public service provision, maintenance, infrastructure costs, and also the difficulty in providing a viable market for people in groceries to social services to everything in the rural areas. So there was plenty from which to learn here. I liked pretty much the, let's say, more coherent approaches that were put forward by Italian case on internal areas and the Spanish case on Castilla. So I think it was very interesting to see how they managed to put together an integrated multi-level system, which I think we should be aspiring to have, and see how the local can connect to the national and how the national can pay more attention to local needs and necessities. Now, I mean, there are many things to note down. I think there might be some particular good ideas on mechanisms to support rural movers. I would say we have also to look at the demography of who stays in rural areas and what we can do to improve their life, to make it equitable to life in urban areas. It might be hard to achieve, but it's always an objective. And also to see, for instance, how can improve the dynamics with facilitators, with rural advisors, or the type of people that we can have to make the main rural centers of population activity cater for the more remote villages, more weak places, so that we can create, let's say, more viable rural economy. And I think that matters the most, to see how we can have rural communities also engaged in every level of activity, in economy, society, in energy communities. I think this is important. And also finding tools to strengthen our community bonds and the way we work together. So.
Okay, thank you very much. I see a lot of takeaway messages or impressions. Yes, Blondine, now for you.
Yeah, so from our side at Euromontana, well, of course, many mountain areas are depopulated. Not all of them, but many are. Many are also at risk of becoming in the future. So this is why we engage that much in the topic. And I think today we had very interesting discussions with a lot of topics that I know we are reflecting on at European level since many years, social innovation, services, healthcare, housing, and so on. So I think that the discussions were really interesting. Now, what I have in mind now is really maybe about what is the next step. And we were actually thinking recently in the office that we think, actually from our side, that rarely the EU has given so much attention to demography and to rural areas. And it's something that Euromontana, but also other rural organizations at European level were really advocating for since a while. And really we see great effort into doing something for rural Europe. And we see that now we have this rural revitalization platform. Soon we'll have the toolkit for funding for rural areas. We also have the rural observatory and so on. And at some point, even us, we think, wow, there are lots of things there, but how do we disseminate to people? Because, okay, today, I don't know how many we are, maybe 60, 80. We were as well a number of people at previous events. I know there are people online, but today we were also discussing about very remote or very local places where those people don't have the skills that we were mentioning, we lack capacity. This tool, for instance, for funding or for revitalization is actually for these people. And they were meant for these people. So now I'm really thinking about the dissemination. I know that here, all of us, we can bring it home and really talk about those tools to people. In our case, for instance, we think about integrating it to Euromontana's website so that people are aware that there are good practices, funding, and so on. But also I was wondering, how does this whole fit maybe at European level? So this is maybe more a call for action or a comment, but maybe how now that we have all this, that is really a great job, how we really disseminate at national level, regional level, local level, really to small municipalities and to the people, actually end users using those tools, basically.
Okay, thank you very much, Blondine. You have actually started answering my second question, which was, how do you think you would like to continue with the platform, links with the platform? So do you have already a community in mind that might emerge as a result of your exchanges here? And what would it be, or if there are any other suggestions? So maybe if you can continue, and then we will also give the floor to other colleagues. How you actually use the platform from now on, or any suggestions?
Well, in our case, that is obvious. We are very interested in building a group on mountain areas. And probably from tonight or tomorrow morning, we will suggest it on the platform. So you are all invited to join. Obviously, all the time we disseminate this info, at least to our members and to anyone following what we do on our website. So definitely, all the time there is a new action that is following the long-term vision. We do disseminate the info, and we do encourage people to do it.
Can I interrupt you
Yes.
here? How many of you here would be interested to join the community on mountain areas immediately? Like, raise your hands.
Great.
Okay.
Well,
look.
See you tomorrow then.
Great.
So yes, creating definitely this group. I see there is interest, so definitely creating a group. On our side, it's true we are a European stakeholder, so what we will try to do most is disseminating and encouraging people to use it. But also in our case, will be very interesting to look, even for us, what other villages, for instance, or other regions are doing. So definitely disseminating and using it ourselves, and really trying to promote those, because I think now we have, as I said, a lot of very interesting tools coming out from the European level, and we need to encourage people to use them.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, maybe, yes, pass it.
We would be happy to be in the platform, and I think it should be disseminated among interested partners locally in Greece, in remote areas, mountain areas, and rural areas to connect and see what they can benefit from. I think at some point they need also more content in local languages, so we need to work into developing more of this locally and regionally, and maybe the EU could help with this as well. So.
Yes, and for example, for your authority in Western Macedonia, do you have
Western Greece? Yes.
Sorry, Western Greece.
Yeah.
You would have something in mind, like adapting that, doing something on the platform in Greek for specifically targeting local communities. You already have had some ideas here while listening.
There is, we need to have some basic services available to everybody. That's the main focus there in the areas where we have closures of grocery shops, coffee shops, people that are far from a pharmacy, far from a supermarket or something. So we have to have some sort of way to improve the internal connectivity. We haven't sorted the transport problems, but I think this is an issue where we have to look at like transport and access and enjoyment of social and public services and so on.
Okay, great. And then
They've said so many interesting things that I don't know if what I'm going to say is interesting at all. So what I'm thought in the morning when you're presenting the platform is that we need to find not only disseminate in our networks, but also to find places to present it like you have done it here. So probably agricultural school can be one place with alumni that are farmers nowadays living in the rural areas. Also, we could find opportunities in the projects that we are developing with women farmers and young farmers. Also, with hands on the platform to know how to use it. And that's how I see it right now.
okay, so for example, any interest in like a community group on working with specifically with farmers and educating farmers? Is that
maybe it might
and
be a group
how
also.
many of you would be interested to join such a group? Look, let's have a look. See,
Not so many as Mountain.
Not as, no, of course not, but that's already quite a big group. That's already something to start with. And of course, I mean, I didn't check how many would be interested in having material in Greek language, but I know there's a very big group of Greeks here. So yes, how many of you would be interested in helping to nationalize or translate some of that platform into the Greek context? Yes, and help move things. And definitely in Spanish, that's a separate question, of
You
course.
can do it in Portuguese also.
And
we are not so
in
many.
Portuguese, why? Yeah. Okay. And I would like then to bring this question also to the floor. Do you have already any emerging ideas of communities that you would like to set up on the platform not somewhere in the distant future, but in the near future? Okay, yes, Christiana first, and then.
Hi. I think we would suggest something on cultural landscapes and UNESCO areas. That's our thing, for example, in our scientific group, but cultural landscapes in terms of culture, but also environment.
Okay, let's have a show of hands if there are people interested in a group of cultural landscapes. Oh, wow. You already found some potential members. Yes, Christiana, go ahead.
Can I? Yeah. I think I would like to do a pilot regenerative village with a bio-fab lab in its heart for SDG number 12, which is sustainable production and sustainable consumption. So in order to make bio-based business in the rural areas.
Okay, a community on sustainable consumption and production. I think that should also raise quite a lot of interest. I'm pretty sure. Okay, yes, great. Okay, these are the people who are raised hand in the community. But anybody raising a hand with another idea that you want to? Yes? Okay.
Yeah, I would just say, I'm not sure if it exists already, but women in rural areas. It's already there. Sorry, haven't gotten it there.
Yes, but please join it. It's there, but it needs to be filled with content. And yes, there is another. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, first.
Yeah,
here, and then Mark.
I think it would be nice to have a group about rural entrepreneurship and like rural incubators and that type of stuff. Yeah.
Okay, rural entrepreneurship and incubators,
Yeah.
definitely. A lot of
And
people interested, I imagine.
just to end on
They're
that, like farm incubator, for example, would be a great example in the group.
Yes. Okay, and then Mark, I think you had yes, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Nobody mentioned culture. What about culture?
Yeah, there was
would-
cultural landscape.
We-
Yes, cultural landscapes were
Oh
mentioned.
yeah. Okay. Okay. So we have a project concept that is related to the cultural heritage of these certain small towns and villages, in which we would like to present the historical buildings with technical with technology, and perhaps someone is interested in that to cooperate with us. On
Great.
that.
Okay, I think we don't want to have too many new groups because that of course there are
Just
still-
one, please. I would like to create one group about social innovation, but in a specific human ecology perspective. Well, not so individual focused or business as usual when we talk about rural entrepreneurship. So, social innovation in a human ecology perspective.
Okay. And
Leading.
I'm sure there will be a lot of
Yeah.
interest in that group as well. Yes, yes. And then you
Hi.
and this is we finish here. So the last microphone, and then we go.
Hi, so I'm here representing rural family doctors, and I think healthcare is a very important topic for rural areas everywhere. We're currently in the process of trying to find out what the situation is in different countries in Europe, more around kind of training, numbers of rural healthcare workers in different countries. So if someone is interested in that area, please do get in touch with us. We're called Eureka.
We will. We will.
But yeah, I would be really interested
more
in
people
having a
in
group on that.
healthcare, interested in healthcare. Okay, great. So you already see, and I'm sure DG Agri has a big interest in moving forward on healthcare. Definitely. I just have one practical suggestion before you leave here. I mean, how many of you have raised hand more than once in this? Okay, just be careful. You go back and you have a full schedule of work. So don't try to create, my suggestions, don't create too many different groups. Try to merge them and find collaborators to run these groups together. So before you leave here, maybe my suggestion is to maybe do a little bit networking on the way out to think together. Otherwise, we are going to send you the list of participants of that event. We're not able to produce it for now, but we will send it to you by email. Try to find their organizations or people you spoke to at organizations that are potentially partners to move things forward, and also contact through the platform or through us. And I will give the panelists, yes?
There is one.
Yes.
One very urgent point.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
We like also suggest because all the working groups, all the themes are very interesting, and we consider that we must stay in the platform, but perhaps in a more general way, we can also talk about public policies, planification, strategies, because without this planification or strategy in a cross-cutting way at regional level, national level, or a local level, it's very difficult to have results. So, for example, or a framework regulatory or something like that about strategies, plans, public policy.
Thank you very much. It's a very important point, and I think I did not call on Franco, but I think you were also thinking about some kind of policy analysis platform. So there's potentially something coming up on that topic, and I think this is the whole point of having that discussion here before, was to make everybody aware how important policies are and how important it is to make them work well and to be enabling for moving the projects on the ground. I just want to give the panelists for your hard work. You get one more chance to have a very, very quick point before we close that session. Unless you don't have to. It's not obligatory, but if something has come up, no? Okay, then a big round of thanks to the panelists. Thank you very much. You know, they didn't know when they were coming to this event that we're going to make them work that hard. So it's not like the other speakers who were prepared in advance, but they really were spontaneous, and that's really big, big thanks. All right. Now, the people who were prepared to reflect on our process here are Marc Bournicien from OECD. Sorry, I saw you here before, and Serafine Pazos Vidal from. I think maybe we did take one by one, so you don't have to be, unless you prefer to be on the panel. But I think we can just speak from the. Yes, so you have the time now to reflect on what you heard and what you suggest as the outcomes. And thank you very much for agreeing, both of you, for this. Sharing with us your reflections.
Thank you very much, Ursula. And I would like to start my intervention by thanking the Rural Pact Support Office for having invited me. It has been an honor, and it has been wonderful to meet several of you, especially also to listen to all these exciting initiatives in rural areas. So today we had the privilege to hear stakeholders from Croatia, Spain, Italy, Finland, Poland, and many other countries. Why is that? Because half of OECD regions will experience population shrinkage by 2050. And rural regions, especially remote ones, have seen the highest increase in elderly dependency ratios in the past 2 decades. In this context, rural depopulation needs to be at the core of policy making at all levels of government, EU, national, regional, and local. However, population decline is not an impediment for rural areas and communities to have high levels of well-being. It does require sound policy interventions because changes in the scale and composition of the population, especially when they happen rapidly, come with at least 3 effects. First, changes in the demand for services, for instance, less demand for education and higher demand for healthcare, as well as higher cost of provision per person as scale economies become lower. Second, mismatches between the infrastructure and housing that is in place and the infrastructure that is needed to satisfy the demands of current and future populations. And third, more sparsity, which basically means longer journeys to access to such services. So today's Policy Action Lab has been centered around this concept of rural revitalization, which is basically the process through which rural areas facing depopulation, aging, and economic decline can improve their well-being and quality of life. And with better data and analysis, it has been possible in the last decade to have a greater understanding of rural regions and move away from the presumption that all rural places are alike. The launching of this rural revitalization platform has only strengthened my conviction that to address rural depopulation, it is fundamental to understand the specific characteristics and needs of different places to ensure that all places can reach their potential, to make sure that no place is left behind. It's a complex area of public policy. It demands a depth of understanding of local conditions. It demands that we think about how policies play out on the ground in different places and the incentives they can create for action, and it demands also engagement in a wide range of actors and building relationships also of trust. That's why I think that the Rural Revitalization Platform is a good answer to tackle this challenge. It is important to have tools to include rural interest, to facilitate experience sharing and mutual learning, to develop new ways of disseminating public information, and consult and engage citizens in decision making. This platform is a great opportunity to engage a diversity of stakeholders' voices, including those that are underrepresented in the policy process, and to empower local and regional stakeholders to be partners in policy elaboration. We know that when people who live in a place play a leading role in identifying a new future, there is a greater chance of realizing it. But for this, we need that all actors, including at the national level, engage in this platform and help bringing these rural voices in the decision-making processes at the national level. So in addition to policymakers, and that's a reflection, I think it's important also to engage private and non-for-profit actors and sectors and leverage their expertise and resources to deliver better outcomes for rural areas. I'm thinking in particular on local businesses and entrepreneurs who perfectly know the challenges, needs, and opportunities of rural areas. As rural entrepreneurs have limited access to offline sources of information compared to urban entrepreneurs, through the platform, they could also benefit from shared information and resources on starting, for example, a business, easing access to markets, as well as to public funds, connecting demand and supply, and on support networks, connecting rural businesses with knowledge partners. Today, we also heard about the enabling factors of rural revitalization. While listening to the different speakers and discussions, several things came into my mind. In rural areas, we definitely need to adjust the vision of a multitude of actors and stakeholders to align their objectives. And for this, integrated strategies and multi-level governance are fundamental. Effective rural policies involve the engagement of a broad array of actors and multi-level governance mechanisms. A pooling of resources and capabilities across entities creates the ability to collectively accomplish what no individual actor can accomplish independently. And with this in mind, it is essential that national strategies, such as those in Spain and Italy, which have been presented to us today, include consultation mechanisms for all rural stakeholders and achieve a healthy balance of top-down and bottom-up input in the policy process in order to ensure that policy design and implementation at the national level is tailored to local needs and can build on existing local assets while directly tackling local challenges. We also often talk about vertical cooperation, but horizontal cooperation is crucial too. I'm thinking, for example, 2 years ago, we conducted a study for the Resoe macro region in Spain, which includes 4 regions, Asturias, Cantabria, the other Castilla-León, and Galicia, to build a common and horizontal action plan to tackle rural depopulation. Regarding local empowerment, capacity building, and innovation, it was demonstrated that reinforcing cooperation among regional and local actors is crucial. For example, through better intermunicipal cooperation to address challenges related to rural depopulation, and through the mutualization of services between municipalities. An example was provided previously in a working group on local associations of schools in Poland. Another important enabling factor of rural revitalization is innovation. Today we heard several innovative ways of tackling rural depopulation, delivering services and supporting local stakeholders. These innovations can involve education, health, mobility, and many other services of our policy areas. They can be digital, mobile, flexible. We heard about transport-on-demand solutions to facilitate transportation of rural inhabitants to punctual places, and that can also be used, by the way, by students or patients to go to education or health facilities, respectively. But there are many others, from online platforms where teachers in rural areas help each other or consult each other to use technological resources, especially since the COVID pandemic, to smart software platforms for local public services, such as lighting, water management, and waste collection. However, many of these innovative solutions are digital solutions, will require that policies that also aim to reinforce digital connectivity in rural areas, as well as reinforce digital skills among rural populations. And maybe one last remark, it is essential to encourage also collaborations between universities, polytechnic institutes, and vocational and education and training schools, employment agencies, and business support agencies, and of course, rural stakeholders. We often talk about clusters, more oriented to business and companies, but it's also important to better link rural areas' needs and labor market needs to the educational offer. And finally, to conclude, I would like to remind that at the OECD, we have been working on rural development for a long time. We also created some platforms, such as the OECD Regional Recovery Platform after COVID-19, and we have launched since 2019 a work stream on preparing regions for demographic change, with several works that might be of interest to you, including several country and regional reviews, and a report on delivering education and healthcare to all that offers recommendations on how to better adapt service provision to face the challenges of distance, demographic change, or fiscal belt tightening. And finally, last February, we launched a 3-year project, Shrinking Smartly and Sustainably, with the support of DG Regio, which focuses on regions with strong and sustained population decline among OECD countries. The project aims to provide internationally comparable indicators on demographic scenarios, on land use, housing and infrastructure, and on subnational fiscal and multi-level governance. The project will also produce a working paper with a policy framework covering all the relevant areas of rural depopulation, a compendium of policy good practices to manage population decline, guidelines for the multi-level governance of demographic change, 3 peer-to-peer exchange dialogues in Paris, and 3 country case studies. So with that, I would like to thank you once again to the Rural Pact Support Office, to congratulate all of you for your important initiatives for the launching of the Rural Revitalization Platform, and to renew the OECD's willingness to collaborate in many ways on rural development and demographic change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's a formidable challenge to try to summarize 8 hours of proceedings in 10 minutes, and it's really like you did. I think you did a great job. And also, I think OECD has a formidable network of users and ways of disseminating your valuable studies and so on. I think linking that potential with the platform would actually give us all a huge boost to make a change. Okay, Serafin, now your turn.
Thank you. I'll try to complement the excellent summary has been held so far. Perhaps I will start with something that has not been properly conceived, that we go straight to the matter, but perhaps we should just take a step back and just say, hey, is the population a problem? Well, I do believe I had a problem. I've been working in this at the European level and in Spain for quite a number of years. So there is a problem. Is this a public policy problem? It depends. If you are in Spain, it's one of the top 5 things in the policy. There's even a ministry, the deputy minister for vice president for that. Other countries that have much worse problems than Spain, that's not a public policy issue. It can be addressed like brain drain or aging. I mean, so we need to actually define the problem better and find common definitions of what the problem is and what the solutions are. And that's why having initiatives like today's is quite important, because we need to actually narrow down what's understanding of the problem in order to actually have proper policy solution. It's actually quite timely, and it's not so highly surprising there is a number of Spanish here, including Director General of Demographic Challenge from Spain, because tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, sorry, the Spanish presidency starts, and no doubt, because it's such a huge issue, that will be also a matter of key priority of the Spanish presidency, as we will hear. There's also be a session, another session on the Rural Pact in Sigüenza in the 26th of September, so definitely something that is very much on the agenda. But again, we need to actually narrow down and have better understanding, because I think we all understand some of the solutions, but perhaps is the issue of understanding the problem. The problem is that, according to the cohesion report and the demographic report of Commissioner Suica, Vice President Suica, half of the European regions will be in serious decline of population by 2040, which is also the year that the rural vision, long-term vision for rural areas 2040 is about to will deliver. So definitely it's a challenging time scale there. Tomorrow, as it was mentioned by Kodrin, the Chief of the Cabinet of Vice President Suica, it will be the second anniversary of 10 Vision of Rural Areas. Today, we have seen the launch of the Rural Revitalization Platform. There is 140 million people, a quarter of the population of Europe live in rural areas. And there is, as we have seen today, a number of very important initiatives. Not just the Spanish one we will discuss, but also we have discussed extensively, or Finland, but also, for instance, the third relay in France that was also mentioned. So we have a lot of evidence, we have many policies, but perhaps what we lack is that there's too many disconnected policies. The long-term vision of rural areas and a number of national strategies, like the Spanish one, like the Italian one, Area Interne, the initiatives in Finland, as we have heard previously, are trying to actually bridge that gap, trying to find solutions across the different departments, across the different policy areas to prevent there is gaps and inconsistency. Because, as Professor Mantino mentioned, even in a very structured policy strategy like the Italian one, Area Interne, it is difficult sometimes to actually say, is this actually providing a result? Well, it might be. But it's, it's even at the best of the intentions, it's such a complex issue that unless you actually find synergies and you actually make sure that the policies, different policy outcomes don't have unexpected consequences or diseconomies or dysfunctional results, you need to actually have a holistic approach. And that's something that perhaps came strongly here today. The Rural Revitalization Platform, because of course there's the big policy level, but also there is the level of the actors, the stakeholders. The Rural Revitalization Platform, linked to the Rural Pact, linked to the long-term vision rural areas that will launch today, is another interface that will be particularly helpful. I'm very glad to see that there's a community already set up for smart villages. There is another one on women in rural areas, and I'm very glad that some of the colleagues of the Grass Ceiling project are part of that. And we have heard today there's some other initiatives. Well, that's quite important because, as I said at the beginning, our understanding of what the problem is not necessarily the same. So the best way of doing that is actually a constant interaction and actually changing perspectives, not just for policy learning, but also to understand our respective differences. And that's something that is quite important. So I hope that many people will make use of this rather free, open, interactive environment that is the platform. Also because many organizations, as we must have, do not have the capacity to do knowledge exchange or knowledge generation. So the European Union is providing you a platform for which to do that, which is actually for free. So, it's quite nice, We discussed, I think, extensively the Spanish strategy. I will not just say that, it's a multidimensional strategy, is holistic, like the Italian one. But also would like to comment on a number of best practices like the Castilla-La Mancha one, because, again, it's at territorial level, it's holistic, has a legal definition, has spatial targeting, has a specific focus on targeted investments, and includes rural proofing. This is perhaps one of the most comprehensive we see across Europe, but not the only one. It's interesting, as you mentioned, the issue of smart shrinking, because we need to be realistic. You cannot have the current map of Europe as it is in 2040 because, there's some areas that inevitably they will not be able to thrive. It's public policy, resources are limited, and global trends, we are fighting against global trends. But, we need to also be sure that we manage those territories, and for instance happens in Northern Europe, they try to manage the territory so the people do have services, the people do have, those who want to stay do have an opportunity, but also manage the environment. For instance, there's a number of places in Europe, there's land abandonment that generates fires, that generates environmental problems, that generates insecurity because the state goes away. So, that's something that we need to address. The Finnish example, I think, in that respect, involving the parliament was quite useful as well. I will not get into too many of the other things. I will just highlight a number of ideas that were collected. And one thing was also, again, coming to Professor Mantino, and others that we have in the workout sessions, is the issue of key enabling factors, either proper legislation or a legislation that allows you to do things, including public procurement, administrative law. That tends to be a burden. A fiscal environment that allows you to do things, but also the idea of social capital. It's quite difficult that innovative policies and innovative practices do have a result unless there are some pre-existing conditions that sometimes do exist and sometimes you have to generate, but you actually need to understand the idea of social capital in order for this beautiful initiative that might come from the top or from the bottom to actually be successful. Another thing was mentioned also in the sessions is the intermediate element. You have sometimes nice strategies at European level or a national level or in regional level, or good initiatives at local level. Sometimes what's lacking is the intermediate, is the connection between the national, local, and the European. And that's the multi-level governance element, to summarize, is something that is quite important. The idea of community empowerment is quite important, as the Polish example we had earlier is quite useful in that regard. The idea of provision of basic services and mapping these basic services. As some of the scientists mentioned here, obviously in their own interest, there needs to be better science policy to society approaches, so bring the local reality to the scientific and the policy environment. And finally, apart from, once again, holistic approaches, we need to understand innovation, not just social innovation. Not just a technological innovation, but social innovation. Because as we have seen throughout the day, small initiatives can provide big change. This is a tall order. I hope that the Commission, but also the representatives, I hope the Spanish presidency follow this path of actually bringing us together a better understanding of what the population is and the solutions we need to address it. Thank you.
Great. Many thanks. Thanks a lot, Serafin, and thanks also for all the work that ADL is doing for rural and local development in many ways. Thank you both for a great contribution to the takeaway messages. Just so that we don't forget, we're coming to the end, and the last few things will have to do with slides or let's say, the screen. So our wonderful colleagues really doing a great job from TPIC. They're going to help us in a moment to bring down the screen. And I would then first ask my colleague and our team leader, Pascal, to say a few words about the upcoming events, so that what is going to happen in the nearest future after we go out from here. And then my colleague, Patricia, will lead us through the evaluation survey. So, Pascal, I think the screen is about to come down, so it's coming down now.
Thank you. Thank you, Ursula. And thank you to all for your very active participation since this morning. Perhaps is also tired, but I'm not sure that I need absolutely the PowerPoint. It's just to remind some future events, the one in Spain that has been mentioned 3 times today in Sigüenza from 27 to 29 of September, and just remind to all of you that the expression of interest is closing tomorrow. This is the one. So we have already a lot of expression of interest, but I'm encouraging you to make your expression of interest if it's not done. And the other two events that we will have in October and early December or end of November, it's two webinars. The first one of energy transition that we are going to organize with the Covenant of Mayors. And the other one will be about, I would say, accelerate an efficient access to funding. And we will have, no, this is the policy lab, sorry. The next policy lab, which will be online, will be in November on accessing EU funding, and the two webinars, one on energy transition that I just mentioned, and the other one will be about healthcare. We have understood today, heard about this important topic, and it will be also in November, December. As you are most of you are members of the RollPack community, you will receive through our newsletter and through our several, I would say, news items that you are developing, all this information for your interest if you want to join.
Okay, thank you very much, Pascal. We keep the screen on, but then you take out your phones and we will ask you to tell us what you thought about this event, very briefly, before we ask DG Agri Director to sum up the proceedings. So please connect. Yes. And I hope most people are already in the system. So please, we can launch the first question. So, to what extent have we enabled your exchanges and mutual learning about depopulation policies? I just have to say, in the meantime, it's not. I was very surprised when I saw so many people in the room in the morning, but I'm even more surprised to see that so few of them have disappeared in the meantime. So I'm really very, very, very thankful to all of you that you're staying with us and hopefully finding it useful. Hopefully, yes. Okay. I don't know, do we need to wait? If we launch the next question, people will still be able to vote? Okay, then I mean, still go ahead and connect and vote. We don't close the next question. Oh, I don't know, Patricia, if we move to the next question, do we? Yeah, okay, please vote. We will see, we will have a look at your results in the end, but maybe we can already, well, okay, 36 people. Let's have over 40 before we move. Okay, yeah, that's. Okay, so this is the communication prior to the policy lab. Okay, so this was all the things that we tried to send you before the event and how we, let's say, communicated with you. And with the platform, we can promise it's going to be easier, hopefully. Let's see, and that you will be know about these events quickly, and you'll be able to register for them, hopefully. And then there is a last question, I think, still. Oh yeah, the last questions is a lot of suggestions for future events. Okay, going outside the EU, going to study approaches from US, Australia, Japan, China. Would be very interesting indeed, because I think they're all struggling with similar challenges. Okay, let's think of the cost of it, but that's a question to DG Agri. To make bridges and think about transnational cooperation. Okay, maybe we should have a cooperation corner somewhere in the next event. Don't know if this... Queues for meals too long, yes. Really sorry about that. It's true that we are just at the maximum capacity for this event and in this room and also in the lunch breaks. At least I hope that the lunch was good in the end, once you have had to queue for it. Yes, okay. Acquis in rural areas, all right? Yes, we need to explore that, dig deeper into that. Okay. I think we will continue voting. We will probably have to roll up the screen now for Mario's last words, but you can keep voting. And if you have further ideas, further comments, we promise we will not lose them. We'll definitely take them into account. Okay, so we can go up with the screen. And the last moment is for DG Agri, who's the main spirit behind the Rural Pacts and the platform. Mario, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Ursula, for this. And dear participants, I'm very happy to be here with you. And really, to see so many at the end of the day, it's a very, very encouraging sign. It has been a long day, very fruitful, on a very essential topic, which is in the core of the rural vision. The head of cabinet, Vice President Šuica, already said that the demography is a real challenge. It is even bigger in the rural areas where we feel it first and it hits hardest. So if the depopulation leads to the decline of services, this feeds the feeling of being left behind. And we should not allow this feeling to disseminate. So we all have responsibilities at all levels to find solutions. I thank Mark and Seraphim for their summary. So I will not summarize the work of today. I will just pick up some 2 or 3 ideas from the working group. So first, thank you very much to those who would like to have direct access to the European funding. I see this as a kind of a nostalgia on the time when leaders started run by Brussels. Well, I'm delighted as a European bureaucrat to hear that the bureaucracy will be less. And thank you very much for this idea. I'm not sure in it, but it's a good. However, we cannot run the rural areas from Brussels. That's clear. The President, Ursula von der Leyen, she said several times, of course, we cannot centralize and have a top-down approach for the rural areas. What we can do, however, is to organize, to create the framework, the legal and the other framework, to amplify the voices. That's why we created the Rural Pact. We created together, not the Commission, to disseminate the information. And here I would like to say that if you go on our site for the Rural Pact, you will see that people, they have the possibility to read in their own languages, because we have already the technology which allows for the machine translation, which is quite good. And we start offering this. It is really very important. Not everybody in European rural areas is obliged to know English or French or German, the 3 working languages of the Union. The second idea I would like just to mention briefly was this about the tax incentives. This is something with the potential. However, when we reflect here in Brussels about this, we have first that the taxation policy is a national policy. So it's very difficult for us to do something. And the second thing that we should overcome are the state aid rules, because de facto the tax incentives is a kind of a state aid. But we are reflecting on this. If you have bright ideas in this direction, where we can do from the European Union and what we can do, please do not hesitate to come to us. Then I will just mention for the innovation, I retain the incubators that help the economic development and the young people, but also the innovation, the idea that stimulating the cooperation will boost innovation is something very good. And it is linked also to what was said about the leadership and the intermediary people, because when we have cooperation and when we have exchange of ideas, we have more leaders, local leaders. To be a leader, you need to have a vision, and to have a vision, you should have some knowledge what happened elsewhere. So this is very important. And last thing that I will say is about the connectivity and the services. It was repeated several times, and it was mentioned about the remote rural areas, which are very dear to us here in Brussels, because if with the intermediary regions and if with the rural-urban cooperation we can help many rural areas, for the remote areas this is not the panacea. So in the remote areas we need to have specific solutions. But there were many ideas today, and my colleagues were here. I'm thankful to them, and they will harvest these ideas and to put them in our future work and in our next steps. And I would just briefly mention what the next steps are. So first, this year is very important, 23. We should take stock of what we have done in the implementation of the Rural Action Plan, of the Rural Pact, and also in the funding for both cohesion and the CAP policy. We are finishing this work right now, so by the end of this work, this week it should be finished, and you will have the results in the conference in Siguenza, which was just presented. And this Rural Policy Forum will be for us very important. And again, if you haven't registered yet, it is open until tomorrow evening, so register. There will be around 200 people on this event. And it will prepare the ground for the Council conclusions. I'm saying this because we hope that the Spanish presidency will help adopting these conclusions. It will be the Council at the end of November, in November. This was announced. The depopulation is a very important topic for Spain, so it is very good. And I think that the stock-taking that we are preparing and the debates in the Council with the conclusions, but also in the other institutions that already pronounced themselves. There is an excellent report of 13th of December of the European Parliament on the rural areas. There are also reports from the Committee of the Regions and the Economic and Social Committee. So all these will feed our work on a public report. It is announced in the Rural Vision communication that there will be a public report in the first trimester of next year, which will contain some reflections. I don't say proposals, but some reflections. And this report itself will prepare the ground for the debate on the future of rural areas. I say it will not contain proposals, because the proposals for the next multi-annual financial framework will be done by the new college and will be approved by the new commission. However, what we are going to put in this report will feed this debate, and also for the budget post 2027. So this is what is coming by the end of the year and at the beginning of next year. And with this, I would like once more to thank you for your active participation today. Once again, it is encouraging to see all of you here. Stay in touch with the Rural Pact Support Office. Stay in touch with the Spanish presidency. Stay in touch with the new platform which is created, and I hope that it will be really helpful. I would like also to thank the Rural Pact Support Office for the excellent organization of today's event, and the colleagues from DG Agri who helped very much today. And yeah, with this, I would wish you very, very nice trip back, and see you next time. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mario, and thank you so much for your personal involvement and support for this, and the whole team also, Alexia and her colleagues. I just have one set of last thank yous. There are a lot of people to thank, even with the little glitches that you picked up, that things not always worked perfectly. But you can't imagine the number of people who have contributed and who have been really making it a great, very rich event. So starting with the speakers, the people who came to present, to share their experience, and I think you would agree with me that both the country speakers in plenary and the local speakers in the working groups were amazing, and we've identified a wealth of excellent examples. And I was only sorry we could not showcase them all, because there were many, many more that we didn't hear about. But wait, they will come. And also to the speakers who helped us close that, and all those reporting from the working groups. Secondly, as I mentioned before, TPIC and the technical team and the hotel staff are doing also the very best to make everything go smoothly. You've seen the choreography of chairs and meeting rooms and tables and flip charts and everything. Imagine with this big group of people in such a tiny space, how much effort it takes on the spot. And we were very bad, and some of the speakers also were very bad with sending last-minute requests or last-minute changes on last-minute versions of PowerPoints, and the great patience of the colleagues, especially from TPIC, were really has to be remembered. Finally, I want to thank my own colleagues who were really doing a great job with the co-facilitation and smooth running and picture taking and platform running, Slido running, everything else. Again, I kept surprising them with a lot of last minute requests and things that we have forgotten, but they did not pass it on to you. They all absorbed it, and it appeared like everything was smooth, and I'm extremely grateful with them. So, as I said before going out, take the moment to network and see where you can bring together the different ideas for the communities and so on. Okay, I don't think we, quite frankly, yes, there is a suggestion for there's so many Greeks here. There was a suggestion for the Greek community to meet somewhere. Maybe Christiana will lead the way and find where you meet. Still take some pictures. Take the picture around the photo frame and so on. Have I forgotten something? Is there anything? And then, yeah, of course, yes. Thanks, Bojana, for reminding. Yes, I haven't thought Paul, who's part of the RPSO team, but he's a special part because he's only our part-time expert, and he has put an enormous amount of thinking into the concept of this event. So, thanks all of you so much. Enjoy. Go back home safely.